to be using the Bernat Softy Baby Cotton yarn, and it is a lightweight 3. You could use any color you want. I'm just taking this kind of like muted beige color. So to get started on this top, you will want to begin with making all of the flower motifs. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to make this. Also, I forgot to mention I'm taking a 4.5mm hook. To get started on the flower, you're going to want to begin with a slip knot, and then you're going to chain 7. Once you have chain 7, you're going to go right back through that very first chain that you created, and you're going to place a slip stitch through that chain. Then you're going to chain 3 to begin the row, and then once you have your chain 3, you're going to place an additional chain on top of that, so you'll have a total of chain 4. You're going to be working right back through that loop that we just made. So now once you have your chain 4, we're just going to place double crochets, wrapping the yarn around the hook, going through that entire loop we just created. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. That is a double crochet. Then I'm going to be placing one more. So one more double crochet. Then after that, you're going to chain 1. Then go back in, placing 2 double crochets. Once you have your next set of 2 double crochets, again, you're going to chain 1. So you're just going to repeat placing 2 double crochets and then chaining 1 before you go back in to your next set of double crochets. And you're going to repeat that until you have a total of 15 double crochets. Now that excludes the original chain 3 that we made at the beginning. So once you have a total of 15 double crochets, then you'll be finished with the first round. So I have done 14 double crochets. I'm going to chain 1 like usual and then go right back in to place the last double crochet of this round. So that double crochet is by itself because we're connecting it to the original chain 3 that we created. So right after you're done with the double crochet, you're just going to count to the 3rd chain of the original chain 3 that we created at the beginning of the round, and I'm going to connect that with a slip stitch. So that completes the first round. Now I'm just going to begin on round 2. I'm just going to be placing my hook through that very first space that my working yarn is coming out of. I'm going to yarn over and place a slip stitch. For round 2, I'm going to begin by chaining a total of 6. Once you have your 6, you're going to be placing 1 double crochet in that very same space that you are working out of currently. Once you've placed that double crochet, then you're going to chain 1, skip over to that next chain 1 space, and you're going to be placing 1 double crochet. Once you have your double crochet, you're going to be chaining 3, and then going right back in with a double crochet through that same space we just worked out of. Then again, just chain 1, make your way over to the next chain 1 space, placing 1 double crochet, chain 3, 1 double crochet through this space. Then you're going to continue this pattern for the remainder of the round. So now that I've made my way to the end of the round, I have placed my last double crochet. I'm going to be chaining 1 and then connecting it to the original chain 3. So I'm going to count to the 3rd chain of that chain 3 and place a slip stitch to connect the round together. So to begin on the next round, I'm going to be placing my hook through that very first space and placing 1 slip stitch to begin on round 3. So for round 3, we're going to chain 5, Then you're going to double crochet in that very first chain space. Then after you have your first double crochet, you're going to chain 2. And then in that very next space in the round, that's the chain 1 space, I'm going to be placing my hook through that very next space, placing 1 single crochet. Once you have your single crochet, chain 2. Then you're going to skip over to that very next space. It's going to be the chain 3 space. I'm going to be placing 1 double crochet. Then I'm going to chain 2 and place 1 more double crochet through that same space. Chain 2 again, go to the very next space, which is the chain 1 space, place 1 single crochet. Chain 2, go over to that very next chain 3 space, placing 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 double crochet. And you're just going to be repeating this pattern for the remainder of this round. So now that I'm at the end of the round, I'm just going to chain 2 and connect it with a slip stitch to the 3rd chain of that very first chain we created. Now to begin on the very last round, this is round 4, I'm just going to create a slip stitch through that very first space of the next round. Then I'm going to chain 3. So in that same space that my chain 3 is coming out of, I'm just going to place 2 more double crochets. Then I'm going to chain 3 and then go back into that same space, placing an additional 3 more double crochets. Then I'm going to chain 2, and then that single crochet that we created in the row beneath it, I'm just going to go through the top of that chain, placing 1 more single crochet. Then I'm going to chain 2 and make my way over to that chain 3 space again. So it's going to be the 2nd chain away from our chain, from our single crochet. So I'm going to go into that 2nd space, placing 3 double crochet. Then I'm going to chain 3 and then place 3 more double crochet in that same space. So you're just going to be repeating that pattern for this row. So just chain 2, make your way over to that single crochet, placing a single crochet on top of it, chain 2, skip over to the 2nd space, placing 3 double crochet, chain 3, 3 double crochet. So I'm just going to continue this for the remainder of the row. So now that I've made my way to the end of the round, I have placed my last single crochet. I'm just going to chain 2 and slip stitch it to the top of the chain 3 that we created at the beginning of the row. So once you have slip stitched that together, then you can just cut and fasten this off. So now that you've finished your first flower, then you're going to get started on the 2nd one. So for the 2nd one, you follow the same exact pattern, except for the very final row, you're going to leave these 2 little petals uncrocheted. So you're going to stop before you do the last 2 petals of the crochet so that we can connect the motif to the very first flower. So go ahead and start on the 2nd flower, but stop when you have 2 petals left of the very last row. Now I've almost completed the 2nd flower. I have stopped. I have 2 petals left to do before I finish the 4th round. So now I'm just going to line them up evenly. I'm going to line up 2 of the petals against the other 2 of the petals. And your working crochet flower should be in front. So I have already placed the first 3 double crochets of the 2nd to last petal. So now I'm just going to chain 1. And then this is where I'm going to connect the 2 flowers together. So I'm going to go through the other petals chain 3 space with my hook, yarn over, pull through, placing a single crochet. Then I'm going to chain 1 and then continue back onto my working petal pattern. So I'm just going to place the remaining 3 double crochets through that last space. Now I'm going to continue the pattern as usual to get to the last petal. So I'm going to chain 2, place a single crochet through the single crochet beneath, chain 2, then go through my last petal space with my first set of 3 double crochets. Then I'm going to chain 1, and again make sure my 2 front and back sides of the flowers are lined up again. Then this is where I'm going to connect it to the other side. I'm going to place my hook through the very next petal on the other flower with a single crochet. Then I'm going to chain 1 and go back to my working flower, placing the last 3 double crochets through that same space. Then you're just going to finish off the working flower. So I'm just going to chain 2, place a single crochet through the single crochet beneath it, chain 2 again, and then connect it with a slip stitch to the 3rd chain of the very beginning of the row. Yarn over, pull through, and then pull that tightly and fasten that off. So that is how you connect your flowers together. You're going to do that for the very next flower as well. So you're going to be connecting it to the other side. So this is going to be the bottom of the halter top. For the size small, you're only doing 3 flowers. For all the alternate sizes and larger sizes, I will have my written pattern available on my blog. So just go ahead and finish the last flower, and then I will show you what is next. So now that I've connected all 3 flowers together, you will have 4 points of connections. When we begin on the halter top portion, we are going to start on the 2nd petal from the connection. So this is going to be the far right side. Both of the corner flowers will have 2 points on the top. The middle flower will only have 1 point on the top. So to get started, I have placed a double knot of my working thread to the 2nd petal from the connection on the very right side. So I'm just going to yarn over, pull through, and chain 1. Then I'm going to chain a total of 7. Then I'm going to jump over to the very next petal point. This is going to be the point closest to the connection, placing my hook through that point with a single crochet. Then from here, I'm going to chain a total of 15. Then I'm going to jump over to the very center of the middle flower, placing my hook through that and placing a single crochet. Then again, I'm going to chain 15. Then I'm going to be jumping over to the very next flower, the 1st petal from the connection, placing my hook through that, placing 1 single crochet. Then again, chain 7. Then jumping over to the very next petal, placing 1 single crochet. So now I have all of my flowers connected by a single chain from the very top. This is where I'm going to begin chaining the body portion. So I'm just going to flip over my work, chain 1 to begin the row, and then I'm going to be placing a row of single crochets along the base chain. Now that I've finished the row of single crochets, I'm just going to flip over my work, chain 1 to begin on the next row, and then I'm going to be doing another row of single crochets. So basically I'm going to be repeating single crochet rows for about 10 to 15 more rows, always chaining 1 at the beginning of each row. I'm just going to continue along until it is long enough to cover my bust almost completely. Then I will start to decrease. So however big this needs to be, I will let you guys know how big that ends up being for me. And of course there will be a written pattern on my blog. So I'm just gonna go ahead and finish this, probably 10 to 15 more rows. But I will let you know the exact number that I do. I'm just gonna be doing basic rows of single crochet. So now I've made the bulk of my halter top. This covers majority of my bust. This is a size small. I accidentally did a row of double crochet and I was too lazy to undo it, so that's why that's there. I don't recommend to do double crochet rows at all because this is very small weight yarn. It's going to be a little bit see-through, but whatever, I just left that. I did 20 rows total, so I counted 2 rows for the double crochet row that I did on accident. So I did 20 rows, and now I'm gonna start decreasing. So I'm gonna chain 1 like usual for the beginning of the 21st row. I'm gonna place my hook through the very first chain, yarn over, go through the very next chain as well, yarn over, then yarn over all 3 of the loops left on your hook. That's how I'm going to start decreasing in my row. I'm going to decrease in that very first chain of the row, and I'm going to do a decrease in the very last chain of the row too. So I'm just going to go along as usual, placing 1 single crochet in each chain. Stop the second to last chain at the end of the row. So I'm going to place 1 single crochet per chain, stopping at the second to last chain, and I will show you how I decrease in the last chain of the row. So basically for the remainder of the top, you're going to be decreasing in the first and the last chain for every row until you get the length of the halter top that you want. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this and come back at the end of the row. So now I'm at the last 2 chains of the row. I'm going to again place my hook through the second to last chain, yarn over, then place my hook through the very last chain of the row. Yarn over, pull through. I'll have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 of those. Then I'm going to get started on the next row by chaining 1 and again decreasing in the very first chain. So I'm going to place my hook through the first chain of the row, yarn over, pull through, the next chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. So then just continue placing 1 single crochet in each chain, decreasing in the last chain of this row as well. And then just continuing basic rows with your decreases until you get the length you want. I will let you know how many rows that ends up being for my size small. Sorry I can't tell you beforehand, but I do make up my patterns as I go, so that is why. But I will be back and let you know how many rows that is for my size. So now I continued the decrease pattern for 14 rows. I'm going to stop there and do 1 more row without decreasing. So I'm just going to chain 1. I'm just going to chain 1, flip over my work, and no decreasing. I'm just going to place 1 single crochet in each chain for this row. So now that I'm done with the top row of just basic single crochet, no decreases, I'm going to crochet along the side of the halter top just to clean up the line a little bit. So to make the turn, I'm going to be placing my hook through that same chain that my very last single crochet of the row is coming out of. I'm going to place 1 more single crochet, and then once again another single crochet. So there's going to be a total of 3 single crochets in that very last chain just to help make the turn. Then I'm going to be going along the side, placing single crochets along the top. So there aren't definitive rows, but I'm just going to make sure that without stretching or trying to increase, I'm just evenly placing single crochets wherever my hook will go through. And I'm just going to work my way down to the end of the halter top. So now that I've made my way to the end of the body of the halter top, I'm just going to be placing my hook through that very first chain of the petal that the flower is connecting to the halter top with. I'm going to be placing 1 single crochet through that chain, then I'm going to be chaining 10. Then I'm going to go down to the very next petal, and through the top loop of the very next petal down, I'm going to be placing a single crochet. Now that I've connected that chain 10, I flipped over my work and I'm going to be working back up the side of the halter top. So I'm just going to do a row of 10. I'm going to place my hook directly underneath that entire row. So just place single crochets along this. So now that I've placed my 10 single crochets, just going directly underneath that row, I'm going to connect it to the very first chain connecting to the halter top and place 1 single crochet. Then I'm going to be doing picot stitches, so I'm going to go into slip stitches. So the very next chain of the base of the halter top, I'm going to place a slip stitch. I'm going to chain 4. Go right back through that same stitch, placing another slip stitch. Then I'm going to go up 4 chains, placing a slip stitch in each of the next 4 chains. Then on top of the 4th slip stitch, you're going to chain 4. Going right back through that same stitch, placing another slip stitch. Then again, go up another 4 stitches, placing 1 slip stitch in each stitch. So you're just going to continue that all the way up onto even the top side, and we're going to stop right there, do a row of basic single crochet, chain 10, connect it, then go back up with the picot stitch, and then we're going to end right here. So that's all I'm going to be doing. I will come back once I've finished. So now I've made my way back to the corner. I did the last picot stitch and only made 2 slip stitches, but I'm just going to stop there to continue with basic single crochets. So in this turn corner, I'm going to be placing 3 single crochets to make the turn, and then again I'm going to continue just placing basic single crochets going along the side. So I'm just going to go down this side and repeat the same way I did the other side with single crochets. Once I reach the end of the halter top, I'm going to be chaining 10, connecting it to the petal, and then making my way back up, doing the picot stitch. So now that I've made my way back up with the picot stitch, I'm just going to continue this working yarn off of the halter top to make the first strap. So the 2 straps are going to be, you're going to want to place them obviously 2 on the top, and then we're going to place 2 more on the bottom. But before we do the bottom straps, I'm just going to go ahead and do the top straps, just a basic chains, fasten off, then I'm going to reattach my yarn through the corner, do a basic chain, fasten off, and then I'm going to fill these holes with another flower motif because it's a little bit too open for my liking. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to first do the top 2 straps. So now that I'm done with the straps, now to place a tiny little detail flower in the middle there, I'm going to take my yarn, make a slip knot, Then I'm going to chain 5. I'm going to place my hook through that very first chain, connecting it together with a slip stitch. Then to connect it, I'm going to basically attach it directly onto the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be attaching this next flower motif. So each petal, there's the center and then there's 3 double crochets. Then I have the center up here and 3 double crochets. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to chain 3. Then I'm going to attach it. It doesn't matter which one you start with. I'm just going to start with one of the flower petals that is closest to the halter top. So you're going to take one of the, so you're going to have the sequence of 3 double crochets. I'm going to be placing my hook through the middle one. So there's going to be the first one, the middle one, and the last one. I'm going to be placing my hook through the one of the middle of the sides of the petals. And I'm going to be connecting that with a single crochet. Then once I have that, I'm going to chain 3. Go through the center of the little ring that we just created with your hook, connecting that with a slip stitch. So now that I've chained 3, I'm going to jump over to the very next side. So here's the very next petal right next to the one I just attached to. I'm going to again place my hook through the middle of the sequence of 3 double crochets. I'm going to attach that with a slip stitch. Then I'm going to chain 3, go back to the mini ring that we created. So now I've attached the mini flower to one side of the petals, and I'm going to repeat the same for the other side. So I'm going to be chaining 3, attaching with the slip stitch in the middle of the sequence of 3, chaining 3, reattaching to the center. Then again, chain 3, attach it to this side with a slip stitch, chain 3, attach it back to the center. So I'm just going to do this side of the petal and come back. So now that I've attached the little center flower to each side of the 2 petals, you will have 4 little petals coming off of that. Now I'm just going to, there's 15 stitches across this lengthwise. I'm just going to pick a stitch that's towards the middle. So once you have finished with your last little petal prong, you will be back in the center with your working yarn. I'm just going to eyeball it and go through the middle, and I'm going to attach that to the center with a slip stitch. Once you have that, I'm just going to go right back through the center of the little ring we created and go to the very next stitch along the halter